Hi everyone, let's talk about Pandemic Fall of Rome. So this is the latest in the survival series of games where, the World Championship of Pandemic is held in a different country every year, and to commemorate it, they do a special version of Pandemic every year. It was Pandemic Iberia first, and then last year it was Pandemic Rising Tide, and now Pandemic Fall of Rome. And I love Pandemic to begin with, so already I am leaning towards the side of loving any iteration of Pandemic. Just vanilla Pandemic, still a fantastic co-op game, one of the earliest games that we played and still one that we would play now, although we play it with expansions. Legacy, absolutely one of the best experiences we've ever had in gaming, and yeah, Pandemic Legacy Season 2 was fantastic as well. Didn't enjoy it quite as much. But I enjoyed both of the other survival iterations. And this one, I think every single one, the Iberia had you thinking about train tracks and laying down your own routes as you progress through the game to try and, that's why the rail network was built, to handle those diseases in the time that it was set. Can't remember now. And Rising Tide has you dealing with water levels and water flows every round, and you have to try and make sure that the dikes are in the right places to stop the water completely consuming the land. And here you are thinking, so again, it's different in that you are repelling armies this time rather than diseases and things, but it has this new notion of, it's not just emergencies popping up everywhere. It's not like whack-a-mole like normal, that, oh, this has come up, so now we need to run over there. There is kind of that element to it, but added on top of it is this notion of the paths, of the migration paths of all of these various barbarian tribes, and that they are, just because you drew the card, unless it's a revolt or something like that, just because you drew the card for Rome, they're not going to go straight to Rome and, as soon as there's 4 of a colour in there, we lose the game. No, they might draw Rome, but they're all the way back here. We've managed to fight them all the way back to their starting thing, so they're only going to be able to put a cube, just one city forward, and they're going to have to build their way up there. And it means that you aren't necessarily putting out the fires by taking care of the cities that have 3 cubes in there already. You're getting rid of the immediate threat of the cities being sacked and you moving down the decline, and maybe they chain and things all go wrong, same as an outbreak in normal Pandemic. But as well as that, you might take care of that city that's got 3 in it. Now, okay, that colour, that tribe has only got single cubes into the city, so we can kind of leave that tribe, right? Well, kind of. Then they're not an urgent threat anymore. But now, like if you saw the playthrough, the black tribe, the Vandals, they never really became that much of a threat in cities. In a couple of cities, they ended up having a few cubes to deal with, but they kept spreading further and further and further, because the playthrough would do a much better job of explaining how this works, but say that a card comes out that's right at the end of their path. They don't just put a cube there. You work your way back until a city already has a cube there, or the city before already has one of their cubes there. So they kind of spread bit by bit across the map, so that they might not have a problem right now. But as was kind of happening with the Visigoths, the white tribe, they had spread out all the way to Rome, and now that Rome card was in there, and as the revolts kept coming out, that kept being shuffled and coming back out. And as if they had managed to get 3 cubes and then 1 more needed to be added to Rome, that's the end of the game, because we have not just allowed them to really to sack a city and make the decline track go down. We would have to ignore that for quite a while. But they've also managed to sneak their way. Fair enough, white is quite a short path to it, but they have managed to sneak their way all the way across the map to Rome, and now we are done for because of this, because they've been creeping along the map. And it's not just, you can go back to these earlier cities and cut them off at the source, but that doesn't matter because they've already progressed to a city that's only a couple away from Rome. They're going to keep going further and further and further if the right cards come out for them. I really, really like that concept. It's very, very different, just like thinking about the water was in Rising Tide in a completely different way. This really adds a new dimension to Pandemic. And as I've said, I am, a fanboy or whatever you want to say about Pandemic anyway. But yeah, I really like the new feel. It's the water was as well, to be fair, in Rising Tide. It's weird to think about to begin with. The rulebook is does a good job, but it's a weird concept to get your head around, that you have to keep tracing this path. And once you've done it enough times over the course of your first game, you're going to get used to it enough that you don't have to think about it that much anymore. But yeah, tracing this path back and seeing them kind of spread across the map, that the Vandals are just everywhere now, because you don't just have to cure the diseases, form the alliances in this game. That's not the sole way to win, because you can also just wipe that tribe off the map. And in our first game of this, one of the tribes we hadn't formed alliances with, because we've been throwing the cards away to do other things, as you'll have to, just in Pandemic in general, one of the tribes we hadn't done anything with was the Vandals, the Black tribe. And in a similar way to the playthrough, they had managed to spread their way across most of the map, and time was running out, the player deck was running out, the cubes were going crazy, and we couldn't really keep a handle on it. I needed to basically go not to the source where the cities were the biggest problems, but all the way to the end of their path and start removing these single cubes all the way back to the beginning. And it was a really nice, different experience that you are, as would have to happen, you are going to where they are causing the trouble and chasing them all the way back to their homes. It was a really nice feeling, and not a really nice feeling. It was really heartwarming chasing that army off. But yeah, it was a really great experience chasing them back to where they came from and Vandal Land, and being able to just win the game like that. It's not just about collecting these cards, it's about taking care of the board itself in quite a different way, I think. But for everything that I liked about that, and the new rolls are cool, and the artwork's very nice and fitting again, and there's always a co-designer. I should have mentioned this at the start. Matt Leacock, Pandemic Guru, and this time it's Paolo Mori, who has done games such as Vasco da Gama, I haven't played myself, but I've heard good things about, and what is it, Live Italia? Not our game, too much conflict in that, but Augustus, it's basically Roman bingo. But I quite enjoy that. For Rachel, my girlfriend, who I've played pretty much everything with, she's obsessed with that game. She would play it at any time, for any reason. Really, really, really loves Augustus. So that gave Pandemic Fall of Rome a leg up for her anyway. Anyway, what was I on about? So really, really like the new pathing and this migration map and stuff, and trying to chase them back. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. The other new thing in this is, and there was dice rolling in Pandemic, I can't remember the name, Pandemic Cthulhu. I didn't play that one. But yeah, there's dice rolling. There is combat in Pandemic now, because we are legions fighting the barbarians. And part of this is going to be my stick in the mud Euro side of just being mistrustful of dice and not really liking them in general. And that is part of it. It's also without mitigation. It's dice rolling with absolutely no mitigation, because you can basically increase the dice that you roll by having more legions there, but that could also just work against you, because now you roll all legions are killed instead. It's one of those things where, sure, the probability blah blah blah, but yeah, probability doesn't matter with dice, does it? It depends whether they have it out for you. There are rolls that like I can't remember the name of the roll. There is one where you reduce your legion losses by 1, no matter what you roll. But in games that I would go on and on about forever, like say Castles of Burgundy, say, well, you love that game. That's got dice in it as a central thing. Yeah, but there's always, you can do actions to get these tokens, or you'll get them from somewhere else. You get workers that can adjust those dice. And yeah, even rerolls and things like that, it's not that it ruined the experience. We still enjoyed the game, but yeah, this was the biggest problem for us, that the dice rolling was just a weird thing that, in the cards in Pandemic are, yes, it's a random thing, and you can have games that are really hard because of the way that these cities come out. And actually, the way that these are set up does kind of give it a bit of a structure, that it's not just shuffle the whole deck like it is in normal Pandemic and then deal out so many and put the cubes out. There are set cards that you start the game out with to give it some kind of structure. But yeah, you can end up really messed up because of the way that these cards have come out and have a harder game because of that. But the genius of Pandemic's system, to the point where, you know, the latest Arkham Horror is using this kind of card system where you are having bad things happen to certain places, and then a certain event comes out that means, okay then, take these cards of all these problem places, shuffle them up and put them back on the top of the deck. It's a source of, you know, exasperation and fear that you might draw the card that just put the revolt out in this version. But yeah, it also gives you a bit of information. You know the cards that came out in the last however many turns since the last revolt. You know the problem areas. You know the things that have already got 3 cubes. Even though it's still a random element of luck of the draw, you have some information. Whereas the dice themselves are pure luck of the draw. And yeah, it's kind of balancing out. Really liking the advancing of the armies and the thematic element of that versus hating the mindless just dice rolling that is for the combat. So because of that, would still say I really enjoyed it. But yeah, out of the special Pandemic editions, I would say that, yeah, it's probably Rising Tide, Iberia, and then this because of that. There is, as with the others, I don't know where I've put the box now. I should really have the box, shouldn't I? As with the others, there is a special challenge to play a more challenging game, but there is also a special solo variant that I haven't played, but you play as 3 characters yourself, but they all share one hand, so you're still limited to 7 cards, but there is a treasury on the board where you can do a special action. The action that would let you trade cards normally, the plot action, now lets you change cards with this treasury that is on the board. So it gives you, you know, you're not just stuck down to 7 cards while playing as 3 characters across the board. You know, it gives you some kind of flexibility of having 3 different pawns to go around the map, and it gives you an interesting choice of swapping the cards with the treasury as well. But yeah, nice to have a special solo mode in there too. But yeah, I think that's enough talking. The playthrough should tell you enough about it. Oh, I'll tell you about this shirt. If you are interested in Pandemic, Save the Medic, Save the World. It's a Pandemic shirt. I mentioned it in another video. There's a Christmas Blood Rage one in one of the videos floating around. Yeah, this is by Meeple Design. They asked me, you know, if we send you a couple of shirts, would you tell the people about them? Here I am telling you about them. There is a discount code in the description, I believe. That might be completely wrong now, and there's just nothing in the description. It's just a barren wasteland. But yeah, if you like Pandemic and you like shirts that are related to Pandemic, this is one. Yeah. Happy holidays. Happy December. Whatever you would like me to say to you right now. Enjoy it. That's Pandemic Fall of Rome. Playthrough is there. Hundreds of other playthroughs on the channel. Subscribing, liking, things like that. You've heard it all before, haven't you? I'm going to say it though. Bye.